What foreign car brands are most commonly purchased in the CIS countries? Where do half of the world's sold televisions come from? Where are the most popular TV shows and music produced today? Yes, Koreans are literally present in everyone's homes today. And even in the American White House, they are invited to feel at home.
Figured I'd make you feel at home.
But behind this bright, technological and trendy facade, there are many questionable stories. Look at this beauty Seoul, and then see how people live in its slums. Here are the successful and multi-billion-dollar giants, Samsung, LG, Hyundai, and the rest. Here is a fact: all these huge family clans are involved in endless corruption schemes with the government. Because of them, 4 South Korean presidents sat in jail. 1 took his own life, and 2 had their children sent to prison. And about the children, statistically, 75% of young people from South Korea, meaning 3 out of 4 from this South Korea, dream of living. How did it happen that a small country without resources, next to an ungovernable neighbor, managed to become the 10th largest economy in the world? Flood the world with smartphones, computers, cars, music, and movies, but at the same time make its citizens some of the unhappiest, heaviest drinkers, and most in debt in the world. How can one place be simultaneously so good and so bad? That was the most popular Korean group. For those who are not aware, just in case. These are also guys, but Korean. They are called BTS. And they don't have millions, but billions of viewers for each video. Their listeners include not only young girls, but also elder American presidents. Well, you remember they even get invited over for visits.
Well, welcome to the White House. Come on up here, guys.
But half a century ago, South Korea, to put it mildly, was a different country. It wasn't really that different from its neighbor North Korea. Just compare the GDP of these countries in 1974. Why that? Well, because both in Pyongyang and Seoul, essentially dictators are in charge. They tightly control both the economy and society. Attention! In the future homeland of catchy K-pop, even short skirts and rock and roll are banned. This is approximately what a Korean barbershop looked like at that time. A policeman drags a man with long hair to the police station where they cut his hair in a boyish style. Yes, only ladies are allowed to have long hair. As a result, in 1973, a whopping 12,000 Korean men will be taken to police stations because the police don't like their hairstyles. The economy is also strict. When the Second World War ends, almost immediately the Korean War begins. And after that, one nation is permanently divided into 2 irreconcilable states, North and South Korea. And then even South Korea, not North Korea, is poor even than many African countries.
The South Korean economy was shattered. Nothing and no one was left untouched by the harsh, bitter reality of war.
And if North Korea was somewhat lucky, as they could export coal, gold, and iron from there, and they have functioning factories, then South Korea has neither significant natural resources nor much industry. Even with food, things are not very good. Anyone who has traveled through Korea has seen that a large part of this country is low mountains, and essentially only 20% of the land can be used for cultivation. The situation is such that you need to buy both food and fuel from someone. And to have something to buy with, you need to earn money yourself. which means selling something. So the Koreans start producing simpler things like shoes, lingerie, and clothing. But you know, the great economists of modern times who made a name for themselves with underwear and bedsheets. Yes, that means the next step is to create something heavier. For example, weapons. By 1969, the Americans, who had concluded their involvement in the Vietnam War, told the Koreans something like this: "Have we overstayed our welcome with our army here? We have some restless affairs on our end, so you figure things out with your North Korean brother on your own." And they withdrew 20,000 American soldiers, but started paying Korea hundreds of millions, even billions, to have them, the Koreans, send their troops to Vietnam. It's a favorable exchange. About 300,000 Koreans will go to support the Americans. Plus, the United States is generous and provides loans for the South Korea to establish its own military production. So, they start manufacturing rifles, light tanks, naval vessels, ensuring a peaceful existence and preventing any surprises from the North. In reality, North Korea also provides assistance with money and technology. But there is a key difference. In the North, the ruling party, or more specifically its leader, seizes the most lucrative opportunities. In the South, where they claim to have democracy, everything is divided among large family clans. In Korea, they call them chaebols. Samsung is one chaebol, Hyundai is another, and LG is a third. Why did they emerge? Well, it's more convenient for the government to negotiate with a few strong, established families that have already proven themselves in business, rather than dealing with millions, remember, poor people, or thousands of small firms. The most initiative ones receive government contracts and subsidies, and this money clans manage on their own, streamline production, and can keep low wages for workers so that Korean products are cheap and can be sold abroad. In return, they can sell technologies abroad. The Americans, for the help Korea provided in the Vietnam War, give initial investments to the country, infrastructure for the future Korean Institute of Science and Technology. What comes out of this? Today, Korea, along with Israel, is a world leader in investments in its own science. Essentially, South Korea follows the proven path of Japan, which we'll discuss in another episode, just about 15 years later. This means that both in Korea and Japan, people are massively adopting new specialties. They establish enterprises and industries from scratch. Later, they start producing entirely new products. For example, did you know that the first mass-produced MP3 player was released by a Korean company? Koreans also sold the world's first tablet computer. Naturally, the economy of such a country starts growing rapidly and people earn more. But let's return to the chaebols. It's important to understand that this is not a typical state corporation that deals exclusively with space or only with oil. A chaebol controls pretty much everything. Take Samsung, for instance. Initially, they dealt with dried fish, vegetables, and noodles, then sugar, textiles, and insurance. And today, they produce their own televisions, smartphones, and chips, and even build ships. Here is the world's largest container ship from Samsung.
Samsung Heavy Industries has successfully built the world's largest container vessel.
And they also build skyscrapers. Samsung acts as a contractor for the construction of the Petronas Towers in Malaysia, the Taipei 101 skyscraper in Taiwan, and even the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa. As a result, the Samsung Group constitutes 1/5 of South Korea's entire economy. Well, it's fantastic to have such a strong, globally respected company, yes, but the problem is that in 1997, when the crisis hit Asia, 12 out of 30 major chaebols collapse and go bankrupt. Why? Because they are not run by the most competent and efficient individuals, but by brothers, in-laws, and other relatives. What about Samsung? Well, the founder of the company passes away. After his death, the business goes to one of his sons, then to a grandson. So it creates a kind of corporate monarchy. So what, you might say, Samsung is one of the most expensive and successful companies globally. It turns out that it's very convenient to raise a country from its knees with chaebols, because the government can easily control them, provide loans and assistance. However, when you consistently support such clans, they start to get lazy, their products lose competitiveness, and the people working in the chaebols become dissatisfied. A very recent example is 2018, when hundreds of thousands of Korean workers went on strike, demanding the government to deal with both the chaebols and their monopolies. But remember, I mentioned that 35% of young people want to leave South Korea. Why? Because there is a shortage of jobs in the country, and there is immense competition. In such a situation, chaebols can manipulate workers as they please. If an employee doesn't like something, they can leave, and there will be others eager to take their place. Consider this: 70% of Koreans have a higher education, and this competition starts from an early age. The Korean College Scholastic Ability Test lasts for 8 hours and is considered one of the most challenging in the world. And even you pass it, get into a university, and obtain a sought-after profession, you still face a tough working life. Until 2018, the country had a 68-hour work week, meaning only 1 day off, and the rest of the days you worked not for 8 hours, but for 11. Although they officially reduced the limit in Korea to 52 hours, but it's still a lot. When you have such workloads across the country, the first thing you get is a very drinking population. Koreans are the heaviest drinkers among non-Europeans. According to official data, each resident drinks an average of 366 cans of beer per year, which is roughly a can every day. This is not counting the local soju vodka, often mixed with beer. Second, Korea leads among developed countries in suicides. The reality of life in Korea can be seen in the series Squid Game and the film Parasite. Unhappy people steal even Wi-Fi from wealthier neighbors, and glamorous areas of Seoul hide real slums. In Squid Game, desperate Koreans in debt are willing to kill each other just to win their coveted wealth. But pay attention, despite all this, there are positives. It's not Hollywood making these movies, it's Koreans portraying their own society. Their cinema today is the most progressive and best in the world. Squid Game became the most popular series on American Netflix, and before that, Parasite won the Oscar for Best Picture.
And the Oscar goes to Parasite.
An important clarification here. Parasite is not just the best foreign language film. That's cool too, but in this category, films compete from places like Macedonia, Cuba, or Algeria. Overall, not exactly the Premier League. But in 2020, Korean Parasite beat Tarantino with DiCaprio and Pitt, De Niro and Pacino under Sorcerer direction, and to top it off, Ford vs Ferrari and even Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. How did Koreans learn to make their cinema so great? Well, first, they didn't learn it immediately. Remember how they cut the hair of Korean men in the 70s. At that time, all cinema in Korea was under strict censorship. To give you an idea of the idiocy's scale, a local Korean author writes a book. Attention! About Algerian cinema. Guess what they did to him? Put him in jail. Because none of the Argentine films were allowed in Korea, meaning the author watched Argentine films illegally. Another example. Korea of that time had a quota system. For every foreign film shown in theaters, locals had to produce 3 Korean films. What did the locals do? Right. They efficiently produced all sorts of cheap garbage and in 3 copies. The audience sees a good Hollywood entertainment and right next to it a low-budget domestic nonsense. What does the audience do? They go for a quality product, and the not quality product goes where it was produced. So, what will make Korean cinema so popular? Koreans and dinosaurs themselves. It's 1993. The Jurassic Park is breaking box office records worldwide, raking in over $1 billion. Meanwhile, in the Korean government, officials are pondering that the whole spectacle with rubber dinosaurs seem to be bringing in about as much as selling 1.5 million Hyundai cars abroad. So, where are the chaebols, for whom it doesn't matter whether they deal with noodles or cars? You will now start making movies to rival Spielberg. And yes, indeed, giants like Samsung or Dell start investing in movies. However, in true chaebol fashion, they begin to interfere with the filmmaking process, appointing their own actors, and if it weren't for the financial crisis of '97, they might have killed the local film industry. But as it happened, it fell into the hands of the people. Koreans are wild cinema fans. Just imagine, even during censorship, statistics show that every Korean visits a movie theater 6 times a year. In the early 2000s, websites emerged where ordinary people could invest in movie production. For example, there is a local film called Dirty King. 464 people collectively contribute 100 million won. The film makes a splash at the box office, and all investors receive 97% of the profits. And then it takes off. large venture funds start investing in Korean films. The government draws up smart quotas for local filmmakers, meaning theaters must show only domestic films for a minimum of 33 days a year. Korean directors indeed find perfect conditions with no censorship, money available from both state and private sources. The government supports intelligently, and the audience loves and values something different from Hollywood. And yes, the South Korean government supports not only cinema, but also music. Imagine, there is a whole department dedicated to K-pop in the local Ministry of Culture.
Yes, a wonderful guy. He's Jimin.
How did you get it right?
Why you don't know who he is? Everybody has to know his name.
Why is the government so interested in them? Let's take the group BTS. At their concerts and merches, they contribute approximately $4 billion and $6 million to the country's economy. So, for South Korea, BTS is a significant asset. In 2021, they even performed at the United Nations General Assembly, right after the president.
No matter who you are, where you're from, your skin color, your gender identity, just speak yourself.
And overall, statistically, every 13th tourist visiting South Korea does so because of these guys. But if we rewind 50 years ago, you remember when everyone had the same haircut and you could get in trouble for a book about Argentine cinema. Music was also strictly regulated, so brace yourself for some absurdity. Every artist had to include in their album what they called a useful song. So it means praising their country's leadership or urging people to work diligently for the good of Korea. Fortunately, half a century later, the authorities understand that contributing to Korea's well-being doesn't necessarily mean working in a factory. Yes, K-pop is a whole industry, making huge profits. There are real schools dedicated to training idols. These are the leaders of these K-pop groups. There, they will tell you what plastic surgeries to get, how to lose weight, and how many hours a day to sing and dance. Some training sessions can last up to 20 hours, and many K-pop performers remain poor in the first year after their debut. It's all due to them slave-like contracts with their entertainment agencies.
와, 나도 생긴 것도 좀 생기고 노래도 어느 정도 좀 잘하고 춤도 어느 정도 잘 추는데
Artists have to pay back money for their training, accommodation, albums, costumes, and even food. The debut of a K-pop group costs the company around $1 million. And while they are shooting new music videos and recording new songs, this debt only grows. So, only groups like BTS manage to earn well for themselves, while average performers spend most of their earnings paying off debt. In general, we are back to the story that not everything is as great as the bright signs suggest. It's like that famous photo comparison between North and South Korea, where it's as dark as night at Kim Jong-un Place and as brightly lit as the Samsung, LG, and other companies' economies. Certainly, South Korea has achieved success because they started developing their own technologies, investing in their citizens to receive complex and in-demand education. They put money into infrastructure, their own music and cinema, and now Korea culture is recognized worldwide. Yes, the government distributed money only to its own, but at the same time, it demanded results harshly from these very people. However, the question remains about how these results were achieved. The country couldn't make the majority of its citizens happy, and the rich continue to get rich, while the poor get poorer. It's the eternal problem of capitalism.